stories.
Real stories.
From real midwives. This is Head on View.
A day in the life. She said what? These are our stories.
Hello, welcome to episode 2. I hope someone has tuned back in.
I'm sure they have. Wait, I'm just pouring some wine because I think it's going to be a thing. Wine during podcasts. Wine and potters.
So again, it's just me and the lovely Laura this episode. We swear we do have a number 3.
We're going to keep her for surprise.
Yes. Today we have a little chat about kind of like birth and pregnancy, like in the media and in films. I guess, especially around Christmas, there's lots of films with like people giving birth and pregnancy and babies. And I always watch it. And before I became a nurse, like I'd watch these things and whatever. Like I was never like, oh, that's so unrealistic because I didn't know shit. I was just like, oh yeah, wow, that happens. And now I watch stuff and I'm just like, that's ridiculous.
That's not what happens. We all know that.
Your water doesn't break and then you're in labour and then you've had your baby 2 seconds later with no pushing him.
Because that's how it always is.
Where's the umbilical cord and where's the placenta and why is it so neat?
And the baby comes out looking 3 months old.
Yes, and it's really pink and not messy and like nothing.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of that. And
would you see a lot of that in your role with your nursing, on-set nursing?
I haven't done any shows where they've had pregnancy, and if I did, I hope I would stand up and be like, sorry, not realistic.
Not real.
Now, some of these shows do actually have medical consultants, which I don't know if people know, especially a lot of the big medical dramas would have medical consultants. So then it always surprises me when they get it so wrong. When you're like,
I feel like maybe they're
hiring this person not doing the job.
Maybe they're hiring the wrong people.
Yeah, but I guess as well, you know, if you ask me something about cardiac nursing, wouldn't have a clue. If you ask me how to intubate, someone on ICU, wouldn't have a clue. So, I'm guessing they might have hired someone who would have a lot of knowledge in one area, but maybe not in other.
General.
So, like sometimes you see those shows and I think someone had like a catheter like stuck up their nose or something. It was really weird. And then,
wrong hole.
Yeah, and it was like, what? Yeah. I always see these screenshots. What's that midwife show, the English one? And it was like originally set back in the 50s. Called The Midwife.
Called The Midwife,
which I love. I haven't watched for ages. And
I actually quite enjoyed that.
That was based off a book of a real midwife. And I feel like they are pretty realistic from what I've seen. I haven't seen it for a little while, so
the first series,
the first kind of 2 or 3 seasons I watched,
definitely.
And I felt they were someone who were very realistic. And in another show I used to love watching when I was a student because I was like, I'm studying, was One Born Every Minute, because obviously
I've never watched that.
So it's like a reality TV show.
Yeah,
they have an English version now, and they actually have one. They're doing one out here too, and they have an American one, and that as well because it's reality and it's not like sort of Love Island reality. It's like, proper reality.
Yeah.
So that's, that's like
comparing it to Love Island.
That's very realistic. So you kind of get an idea of what's happening. But when you watch a lot of other movies, like, what's that one, What to Expect When You're Expecting? That's really funny. But when you see the one, I can't remember the character's name, and she just like sneezes and has twins. And 2 seconds later, she's like a model again. And
that movie, one of the things I do like about that movie in terms of representing pregnancy and birth was the fact that all the women had very different experiences.
Yeah.
So, you can have some women who, and I've had 2 babies myself and I've been pregnant twice, and I can tell you now, I fucking hate being pregnant. Did
you find they were both very different, or
both very
similar?
Very different pregnancies, but I just wasn't feeling it. And I think that's really important because people are like, you make this choice or you not have a choice. I don't know. That's probably a whole nother episode. Having a baby. And my pregnancy with my first was just really sort of stock standard, nothing serious, nothing this, nothing that, the birth, a different story. But I just didn't really feel that glowy.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit sick. I really like the fashion. I love the fact that all of a sudden I can have a big belly. And
it's kind of cool. Yeah.
And it's kind of cool.
And no one's like, oh, you're fat. It's like, oh,
And then as I became
Yeah.
bigger in my pregnancy, I was just like, stop touching me, stop asking me what I'm having. So
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it. And I wasn't loving it. And my second pregnancy, I had hyperemesis.
Yeah.
And I literally vomited for 10 months.
I'm just assuming everyone here knows what hyperemesis means, but that just is like
Yeah.
really severe morning sickness. So
Severe
that's-
all day, all night.
So that you normally
sickness.
end up in hospital with fluids because you cannot
Lots of
keep
fluids.
anything
Yeah.
down.
So
Yeah.
I hated that pregnancy too. I just didn't like it. When people talk about, I can feel the baby kick, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm literally being bruised from the inside. I didn't enjoy it. There were certain things that I was very confused about, and it made me question whether or not I'd be a good mother
So I
because
think
of that.
as well, when you were pregnant too, so your kids are what, like
13
30?
and 9.
Yeah. So there wasn't, the social media wasn't crazy. There wasn't
Well, there was nothing like
Instagram,
that.
Facebook. Like we weren't getting bombarded with these images of people with their perfect
People now, they
babies,
take pictures
their
of their
perfect
bellies with
children,
the
their
little
perfect
signs.
bellies. Like, I think growing up, all I knew of pregnancy, really, I went to a convent school, no sex education. So, literally did not even get to talk
Don't
about
have
periods.
sex.
Yeah. So I also come from a big family, lots of children. My sister had her first kid in high school. So, I was around babies a lot, around children a lot. So that was how I really learned about mothering. And so we didn't have all these, you didn't have the pressures from the social media telling you how you should look and what you should do. It was more just like family advice.
Yeah. I remember going through each month of my pregnancy with my first child back in 2007. And I think I had just joined Facebook. And I almost feel like I missed out on a whole section of my life in terms of recording it.
Yeah.
Because I have maybe a handful of photos of me when I'm pregnant or when I'm breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And now everyone who's pregnant, there's
now they have so much.
they have little signs in the background,
Yeah.
17 weeks,
They have
18
beautiful
weeks. Like,
photos
I
to
love it.
document, which is like, which obviously.
But I don't really have,
But I feel that's kind of because we're old, like our whole life. Like, because it was a hassle to take a camera out of you when you were young. And the camera phone first came out, I think, God, I was maybe 20, but they were shocking. You'd take a photo.
But
you
even
can see
then,
shit.
you know what? I was so tired, even with early parenting.
Yeah.
I was like, what? How do these women find the time to put the baby on the blanket that says 3 months? And these are his milestones. At 3 months, I was fucking crying.
Yeah.
Crying and crying.
I feel it has got a little bit better recently. I feel people are a little bit, you do get more people now who are kind of like, this is what motherhood really is like. And
Because
you
they're
see
more
them,
connected.
they're like, they're fucking tired, they're crying, their baby hasn't shut up. So it's not all roses and butterflies or, and I think people need to know that coming in. People need to know that it's not all beautiful pictures and sunshine and,
it's not.
Yeah, just so it's realistic.
Yeah.
Like obviously you're going to love your baby.
Sometimes not.
Yeah, but
And
it's
sometimes
hard.
you have to learn to love your baby.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things you could probably talk more about birth itself. I don't work a lot in birth suite because I don't think that at all. I did it. I did my time, but it's not really, I think in midwifery, you sort of fall into little pockets of midwifery that suits you. I reckon if I ever had another baby, I'd love to have you as my midwife.
Oh,
You would be so cool.
See, I'm one of those hippy dippy midwives.
I fucking love it. I would love it.
That was kind of another reason why I went to night shift as well, because I found, apart from the fact that I didn't get on with a certain staff member during the day, but I found during the day that the birth was very medicalised. So it was very much induction, cesarean, put the sin up. And it was, and you end up doing so much time, like charting everything from 5,000 different charts that, now I've got to do this every half hour, this every 15 minutes. And of course it is important, to make sure things are right.
But you're also not with women.
Yeah, that's what I found. I found I wasn't with them. When you see things in TV, I feel like you just don't really, unless it's a show that's specifically about midwives, you don't ever see midwives. You just see doctors.
Yeah.
And then when I would talk to people in antenatal clinic and they'd be like, I hope you're delivering a baby. And I'd be like, well, it'll be the midwife. And they'd be like, well, I want to be a doctor. And it would
Isn't
be
that
like,
interesting?
well,
So they're getting that from media. They're getting
that's
from
what I assume, yeah.
like even American, and you know, American movies hold such a big place in
And
everyone's
things like
lives.
Grey's Anatomy, like that, which
God.
I do love Grey's Anatomy, I won't lie. But
My son loves that show.
So you have like one doctor who is not only, I haven't watched it for a while, so I'm probably going a few seasons back. But, you know, you've got Addison, who's this amazing O&G doctor, but who's also this neonatal surgeon.
What? How?
Like, I've never seen a neonatal surgeon and an O&G, like, as in they are like the same person. A few seasons later, there was like Arizona, and then she was the peds doctor, and then all of a sudden she was O&G as well. And it's like, what? When did you become from peds?
Because we know there's no
O&G?
pediatric doctor that's going to be like, yeah, let me catch the baby. They're going to be like, no way, man. I'll stand over here. So I think from someone who works in birth suite, do you think that most women have like a skewed view on how they're going?
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to kind of generalize like that. I think it depends where you work as well, the kind of demographic of the woman. So sometimes you'll see, you know, this popular woman and, you know, they have this whole birth plan, which is great. It's great as long as you're not too rigid. Sometimes people are very rigid. You have to have this. And it's like, okay, that's great. But you have to be prepared things aren't going to work out. But yeah, surprisingly, I guess I do see a lot of people who literally have no clue. No clue. Like no clue at all. Like one woman even seemed surprised that the baby was going to come out of her vagina. Yeah. And I was just
I think I remember.
It's like, so this story. So this was working in like a not the hospital I met Laura, another hospital. So like a major metropolitan hospital. So this hospital has like a little assessment center. So before they come up to birth suite, they get assessed. And she was actually a primary, which just means it's her first baby. And the assessment centre said, okay, we're sending a primary up. She's 4 centimetres. So great, fine, heaps of time. Generally, primaries are 4 centimetres. Yeah, it's enough for them to be admitted. But you've got a while. She comes in and then I was just like setting the room up, getting a jug of water. And she's like, I need to go to the toilet. And I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. Toilet's just there. And then all of a sudden, I just hear this, oh my God, something's coming. What is this? Something's coming out. And I was like, what's that? Literally like 10 minutes ago, she was 4 centimeters. So I kind of went in there and I was like, it's okay, like, and I was like, it's okay.
Did you have gloves on?
I put gloves, as she said that, I put gloves on and I walked in there. I walked into the bathroom and I was like, it's okay. It's like your baby. It's fine. And she just seemed very shocked that the baby was coming out of her vagina.
Where did you think it was going to go?
I was very confused. She was like, what's happening? Why is it coming? And I was like, no, it's fine. It's just your baby. Like, obviously a bit quicker than we thought. Like, no worries.
It's okay.
And it was absolutely fine. No biggie. But she was so... Yeah, I think she had expected cesarean. So, because afterwards the husband was like, oh, we wondered when we were going to go for the operation. And I was like, hey, why would you go for an operation if there's no need?
I think so many people are prepared to have a Caesar because the Caesar rate is so high. Yeah. And there's so much intervention. And because I work in clinic a lot, I feel like more women accept a cesarean.
They're going to have cesarean. And also,
they accept a cesarean, but they don't seem to be able to even
But I also want to say that, like, nothing wrong. Like, if you choose for you, like, if you're for you, you know, for whatever reason, you feel it's best for you to have a cesarean, like, that's fine as well. People can get a bit judgy about types of birth. Like, I had a natural birth.
Even women's perception, they're okay with a cesarean. They've accepted the fact that they might have a cesarean, but they haven't accepted the fact that they might also have a vaginal birth.
Yeah. You know, when I'm with people and they've done, you know, this amazing labour and they've been there for hours and then the baby gets obstructed and they have to have a cesarean. And I get, like, it's heartbreaking for these women, but, and there's never really a right thing to say to someone, but it's hard because you kind of think we're so lucky that we live in a country that we have access to cesareans. We have access to clean, safe operating theatres. So, you know, where your baby's going to be born, like, and safe and that you're both going to be absolutely fine. Not like, perception I don't know, like 100 years ago or whenever it was when, you know, the mortality rate was so high because your baby would get stuck and that was it. There was no way to get it out.
Yeah. Also, for people who are listening and you might work in very different areas, in whatever city you live in, I think people do watch commercials and watch movies. And there's certain demographic of women, and you might be able to say yay or nay to this depending on where you were, that think this is what will happen. These are steps 1, 2, and 3. I've been in clinic before where I've said to women, you will probably have a vaginal birth. And they'll be like, but most people have cesareans, right? And, well, where are they hearing that from?
Yeah. And you know what? We should probably have done some research and just at the actual statistics. To
We
see,
could, you know what?
to
We
see
could,
what they-
we
to
could
see
do
what they
that.
are.
Are you researching that
I
now?
might do it now. Like,
Okay, so while you're Googling that,
to
because
be
we're
honest, I think I'm not going to find it. That
because we're
quickly.
totes prepared,
Yeah.
obviously. A good thing to touch on when we're talking about perceptions of birth. Perceptions of how to feed your baby is a big one, and parenting as well.
With the Free the Nipple campaign, that was like huge.
Free the nipple
I feel
campaign.
that was like a few years ago now.
Was that here?
Yeah.
What?
That was huge here in Melbourne.
What was it really?
Where were you?
I don't know. A few years ago.
A few years ago.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm saying this, I haven't breastfed. So, but it does seem like people are more comfortable breastfeeding and more happy to and want to, especially
think
now
so.
you see everyone on the Insta going, yeah, look at me breastfeeding. So there's not people going, oh, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope people don't in this day and age that
I
no one feels.
hope so.
Yeah.
I've had two very specific things happen on the same day to me in regards to what you've just said about breastfeeding.
Yeah.
I had one woman actually say to me that she's not allowed to breastfeed in public because her husband doesn't like it. And I was like, oh, well, actually, that doesn't really, I said, you do what you're comfortable
does
with.
he not eat?
And I'm like, well, next time he eats in public, throw a towel over his head. And then I had, in the space of the same day, a woman say to me, I really don't, that other woman desperate to breastfeed whenever she wanted to. And this other woman is on the other side of the spectrum with her first baby, crying her eyes out because she can't think of anything worse than putting a baby to her breast. And I'm like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
And I think there's this really years and years ago, there was always a bottle in a baby's mouth. And now the perception has changed where breast is best.
Breast is best. And I think I like the saying fed is best.
Fed is
I feel
best.
like fed is best.
And, if a woman says to
Yeah.
you, if a woman says to me, I can't think of a good reason to breastfeed because she hates the feeling. It makes her vomit, which is quite common.
Yeah.
Some women will, when their milk lets down, have a response to it in terms of nausea and vomiting. Some women find it painful when their milk lets down. There's all sorts of reasons why a woman doesn't want to breastfeed, but women now who are choosing to bottle feed are under more scrutiny. Because
people are very judgy these days.
And why?
But about
Like,
everything, yeah.
it
And
just,
standard business.
people were judgy with me because I breastfed my first child for 2 years. I got told on a plane, you shouldn't be feeding that child. And I was
No,
like, well, that's
love
the
it.
only way I can get this
Love
kid to
it.
sleep. But, I don't care.
I feel like I'm always really excited when I ask people. So I normally, when I ask them, I'm like, especially when they come in for delivery, if they haven't sort of set out a birth plan and after you ask all normal questions, oh, are you planning on breastfeeding, baby? Like, what's your plans? And then I'm always like, oh, have you done any breastfeeding before? Because it's always good to know, not saying every breastfeeding mode is going to be the same, but if they've had problems before, they may have problems again.
Yeah.
And if they've done it, if they've breastfed all their 5 babies previously, then chances are this one's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, it's always good to know what people.
And then you have women who bottle fed all their children, and then they have their random 6th baby.
And they're like, I've got
I want to
time.
breastfeed.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Now. I'm not super busy.
And then you've got this almost first time mum who's never breastfed her baby.
And then it's really hard because people are like, oh, this is a multi-6 baby. Oh, she knows what you're doing. And you're like, no, wait.
She doesn't know what she's doing.
She needs help.
So I think that's as a mother, and as a mother who I was very, very hell-bent on breastfeeding. And the way I took it was take a month at a time.
Yeah.
If you get through that month, good, you're on to your next month. And by the time I got to my first year, I was like, cool, I've got the hang of this. And then that changed because, teeth and stuff. And there was new challenges for me and food and all sorts of other things because my first child didn't really eat food, which is odd now because he eats so much.
Yeah, but that's fine. That's
until he was 10, 11 months.
That's why you make this amazing milk that just serves the baby's nutritional needs.
But I found that was the hardest part
Yeah.
is perceptions of people. Should you or shouldn't you? And nowadays
that's something I always talk about people going to antenatal appointments. I'm like, as soon as you tell people you're pregnant, every bloody person you know is going to have an opinion what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how their pregnancy was, and everyone.
How celebrities are doing it. What are celebrities doing?
And then you're
are they
see
breastfeeding?
so much stuff bombarded by what they're doing, and in the end, you just have to kind of shut it out and be like, well, what's best for me?
I think the best thing for women to do when they're feeling overwhelmed by
put the phone
media,
down.
Like I always say, watch the baby, not the clock. Find really good evidence-based. When I say evidence-based, it's information that's been tried and tested. Stay away from forums.
drhealth.com or something where you're like, just literally any Joe Blow can set up a website and write that.
And stay away from breastfeeding forums that are toxic and full of, well, I hated it and this was horrible and this will happen and you have to do this. And getting on websites that are the Australian Breastfeeding Association or the Lailesh League.
Also, let me just roll back to those.
So
this is the official Australian birth stats. So this is from the AIHW. So their birth are that 2/3 of mothers have vaginal births and 1/3 has cesareans. So the majority of women are having vaginal births. This is in Australia.
The highest cesarean rate in the world is Brazil. Someone, please, you can tell me, you feel a shit. But I'm pretty sure the women there they want a Caesar. You know what? I don't think many of the doctors we work with, in fact, I don't think any of the doctors I'm working with currently would give a woman a Caesar just because she wanted it. I feel
like in a public hospital, to be honest, I feel it is a little bit tougher if you want a cesarean just because you want it. Because in a public hospital, you have to have a reason for a cesarean. If you go to a private hospital and you're paying for that shit, I mean, you can pretty much ask for what you want.
You can ask,
You can.
And you know what? If that's a woman's choice.
And that's your choice,
why should we take that away from her?
It is hard, really, isn't it? I guess it comes back to money and costs because of how much a cesarean costs compared to how much a
and how many kids do you want? If you want 5 or 6 kids, you don't want 5 or 6 Caesars.
No, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I only wanted 2 kids tops. And I've had 2 Caesars.
Yeah. 5 or 6 Caesars will be pretty hard on the body. And I'm also sad when you have this multi who's pushed out 6 beautiful babies and then she gets to number 7 and obstructs and then
she has a Caesar. Oh no. We've had that recently. It's so horrible. It's the worst.
Yeah, I was really sad.
And it also brings us back to that perception of what everyone thinks should happen in birth. Like she's had 6 children vaginally.
That one should be full out.
Therefore, this one should be easy. But what I've learned, and I'm sure you've learned in midwifery, is that there's so many gray areas. Nothing's really that predictable.
Like I'd say normally if someone's a primary, I'd expect them to take a long time. But the same, I've had primaries pop babies out straight away.
Yeah.
And I've had multis
take ages.
Obstructed and have a Caesar or take ages. Yeah.
So I guess in terms of the media and at the moment, because social media and everything is so accessible for people and you can just surround yourself and feel like you have to follow Instagram, certain people and
follow us.
Follow us.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of pressure on women out there
100%.
to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
For their pregnancy, their birth, and breastfeeding, and parenting,
and how their body looks afterwards.
Oh God, forget about that.
Yeah, and I do feel it's really hard. I mean, there's this whole body positivity movement that's going on now.
It is, but I don't feel like it's towards postpartum women.
Yes.
Which is after pregnancy, if you don't know what that means. But
it's not as realistic. And I kind of hate it when you see these people bending over trying to force a little fat roll out of themselves and going, and I'm like, you literally.
And I think one of the most important things to remember is that breastfeeding does not change your breasts. Okay, you might get stretch marks and stuff, but it's from pregnancy. Yeah. Women are like, well, if you don't breastfeed, then your breast will be fine. Actually, it doesn't matter if you breastfeed or not. Your body changes so much in pregnancy, and it's pregnancy what changes your body shape. Some women do bounce back, and more power to them, whatever.
Yeah.
That's called genetics.
Kind of like apt time for people to have, when your body to have a baby is like when you're quite young. So when you're like 18, 19, 20, that's like when your body is prime position.
Yeah, because
that's obviously not life position to have a baby.
Exactly.
So you do see young mums come in and they have a baby and boom, flat tummy, great. But I mean, most of the people aren't wanting to have a baby at 18 or aren't in the right place at life. So then generally, you know, you're having people come and having babies older when their body is not at the prime.
Women are so hard on themselves because they think, oh, I'm going to have this baby and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to have this perfect little pram with the perfect blanket, and we're going to be walking to the shop and we're going to go have lattes and we're all going to look amazing. And no, you're fucking shit tired. Yeah. You don't want to drink too much coffee because you think it might go through your breast milk and it might aggravate the baby, or you've already had 4 coffees that morning.
Is there a limit? Lactation consultant? Is there like an official limit? What people
I don't think there's an official limit, coffee. But I mean, caffeine does go through the breast milk.
Do you feel it's kind of individual? Like you see how your baby reacts to it?
And I think it's how you react to caffeine as well. I used to be able to drink enormous amounts of caffeine, and neither of my babies seemed to mind it. Yeah. But maybe though they both like tea and coffee, like now, so maybe. But, you know, that sort of perception that you have to be looking your best.
I say stay in your fucking pajamas, bring your girls around to the house and then cook you some food. Like,
I think I've told you this story that I went to my first child's 6-week maternal child health nurse appointment without him.
Oh, yeah.
So I rocked up. It was hi, parenting 101. So I rocked up to the appointment in my pajamas. I had a normal top on, but my pajama bottoms. And I got in. It was the first time I could really drive after my Caesar. I was like, oh, should I take the pram out? And then I was like, oh, I didn't bring the pram. Oh, no, because I can just walk him in. And then I opened up the side door and I was like, fuck. I didn't bring him.
Well, like, had you left him with someone? Or
he was in the cot sleeping.
Oh, by himself.
Yeah.
But can I say people wouldn't do that now? But I feel like when I was like
so
a baby,
tired.
I feel like parents did that in the 80s.
Yeah, but I was so tired. And I swore I put him in there.
Yeah.
And I remember the health nurse, because it was just like around the corner. Yeah. And the health nurse was like, Laura, are you okay? And I was like, I left him at home. She's like, what? I'm like, I'll be right back. BRB with the baby. And she came back and she was laughing. She thought it was the funniest thing. And I was like, I'm so tired. Yeah. Like, I can't see straight. I'm so tired.
When I was a baby, so back in
a baby.
Back in the day, obviously I don't recall this, but I've heard the stories. Small town, England. You know, they used to leave the pram like outside the shop when they went into the shop.
That was totally a thing.
So my dad did that and then went home and left me like outside the shop.
I love that no one took you.
Clearly no one wanted me because I was still there when he came
They all got their own babies.
Yeah. Oh, there's a baby outside the shop, whatever.
And see, this is what's changed so much.
Oh, yeah, now. Oh, my God. You would never. Could you imagine going into Coles and just leaving the baby outside?
Like with the dogs.
In a minute. Like, that's insane, isn't it?
I got taken home in a wicker basket and put on the back seat of my parents' car.
Yeah. I remember when you didn't even have to wear a seatbelt.
Yeah, and there was no seatbelts in the back of the car.
And I don't know if you had different rules here in Australia, but I remember even as a teenager, and my mum would be like, if you're going to sit in the front seat, wear a seatbelt. It was safer wearing a seatbelt in the front seat, but in the back seat it didn't matter. Like,
and it's, and we're alive now.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
Surprising.
Surprisingly. But our parents did such different things with us, which now when I see young parents, and some of them are my friends, I either think one of two things. Wow, they really don't worry about certain things. Yeah. I worried about them. Or you really should be worrying about that. It's one or two. I'm either surprised that they're not worried or surprised that they're worried. Or there's certain things like I've had women worried about where I'm just like, the first year is a total write-off.
Yeah.
But, you know, how are we going for time?
Cool. Well, I don't know. I just feel like we've prattled on for
We have prattled on. But
and
no,
we
we
kind of got a
did.
bit off topic and whatever. But it's the beauty of having a podcast with no real rules or regulations.
We did address things and we gave people some information.
Anyway,
didn't
so
we?
I hope you have enjoyed this ep of Head On View.
Yeah.
And again, if you have anything you want us to cover or any questions, hit us up on Insta, HeadOnViewPodcast. Follow us, subscribe, download, and all that other stuff
All
people
the
do
things.
on Spotties. We'll see you next time, hopefully with our number 3 in tow.
And be sure to tune in next time for more laughs, thrills, and real stories from real midwives on Head On View.
I didn't know it was still recording.